There won't be one of your listeners to this podcast who hasn't suffered from decision fatigue. What the literature does show, and our own research as well, is it is the number of decisions that definitely plays a role. And you said hundreds of decisions or thousands. The number of decisions actually estimated now is something like 35,000 decisions a day for your average person. From a behavior perspective, we need to remember one important fact, and that's that we have a limited number of quality decisions every day. We need a decision list, not a to-do list. And that's a big, big change for people because we tend to do things that are the most urgent, which I get it, sometimes you have to do, but we're not thinking about it from the quality of our decisions. It's really a fundamental shift because our traditional measures of productivity don't account for decision fatigue.
Welcome to Think Shift, the podcast that invites you to change your perspective by exploring the incredible power of the human brain and mind. I'm your host, Mantazh Khanna, and I am a brain coach, a neuroscience researcher, and an advocate for holistic health and well-being. My own journey into this work began as a cancer survivor and a caregiver to a family member with Parkinson's. So I've seen firsthand just how profoundly our mind influences our body. And that's why I do what I do. Today, I work with individuals and organizations to build mental resilience, optimize brain health, and to support our healing using science-backed techniques. And as I pursue my own PhD in neuroscience and mind-body medicine, I bring the latest thinking to every conversation. In each episode of Think Shift, I sit down with leading experts to explore how neuroscience, cutting-edge technology, and even everyday practical tools can help us think better, live smarter, and thrive deeper. Every expert that is invited to this show is going to share real-world insights and actionable strategies that you and I can use every day. And my hope is that this isn't just a podcast, but an invitation to you to reimagine what's possible for your mind and body. So, if you're ready for some bold insights, some transformative science, and a few surprise aha moments along the way, you are in the right place. Let's start shifting. Let me ask you something. Have you ever gotten to the end of the day and thought, why am I so tired? I didn't even really do that much today. I didn't run a marathon. I didn't lift any weights. I just made decisions, and maybe hundreds of them. I chose what to wear, what to eat, what to reply, when to say yes, when to say no. And guess what? My brain is exhausted. That, my dear friends, is decision fatigue. It is real, it is happening, and most of us don't even realize that it's hijacking our brain power. That's why I'm so excited about our guest today, Dr. Shawn Watson. He is a neuroscientist, a founder and CEO of Senescence Life Sciences, and he's the host of his own podcast called Decisions That Count. So if you're interested in decisions as a topic, that's definitely a podcast you have to check out. Dr. Watson is really an anomaly. He's on a mission to help us understand why we burn out from making so many decisions, and more importantly, what can we do about it? In this episode, Dr. Watson is helping us break it all down. What decision fatigue really is, what's actually happening in our brains when we feel it, and why some decisions feel just impossible, whereas others feel so easy. So we're going to learn about how our modern, always-on lifestyle is kind of actually making it worse. And Dr. Watson's going to share with us how we can cut out some of that noise, save our mental energy, and make smarter decisions without feeling drained. So this is one of those episodes that's going to hit home because I know, just like me, we have all felt this way sometime or the other. Let's face it, we're all making too many decisions, and I'm not saying we shouldn't be making so many decisions, but we should be aware of what it's costing us. So let's shift our thinking about decision making today. And with that, I'm going to welcome Dr. Shawn Watson. Hi, Shawn.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is so lovely having you here. I still remember the first time we met and we talked endlessly and could have continued talking endlessly. But I'm really excited to bring this topic to Think Shift because it's not well understood, let alone understanding it is not really something that most people are aware of either. And I think when you and I met, it was probably the first time it hit home for me that this is neurological. This is something we should be talking about and be aware of. So with that, we'll begin with the most basic question of all. What is decision fatigue? What is this term that I've been blabbering on about?
Maybe to start, I love the name of the podcast because I think hopefully by the end of this, we will shift people's thinking about decision fatigue, right? And make them aware of it and kind of what causes it, what we can do about it, because it did shift my own thinking as a neuroscientist.
Yeah.
So what is decision fatigue? What it's not. And I think that's a very important place to start because we all know mental fatigue. So mental fatigue is when we feel tired, right? Yeah. It's that sense of oh, I just can't go on anymore, like I'm physically drained or after a long day. And it's solved through things like caffeine. So stimulants, energy drinks, a cup of coffee, all of those things help with mental fatigue. Decision fatigue is not that. They're actually somewhat mutually exclusive. So you can feel very tired and have decision fatigue, or feel wide awake and also have decision fatigue. So what is decision fatigue then? Yeah. Well, it's the deteriorating quality of our decisions over long sessions of decision making, or in situations of stress and anxiety. So what does that mean? It means that the quality of decisions that we make isn't consistent throughout the course of the day. Now, some people may, I realize that's because I'm tired, right? As the day goes on, I get more tired. That's not it, though. So decision fatigue can happen within an hour or two. It can happen actually quite rapidly. And the consequences of decision fatigue are quite unique. And they're very different from mental fatigue. So the two consequences, and I like to highlight these right at the beginning because I think it makes it very relatable to people. And then hopefully it'll help your viewers to see that, oh, it's not mental fatigue, this is decision fatigue.
Yeah.
So the two consequences, the first is easy to see. It's decision avoidance, we call it. So that's when your brain says, I've made too many decisions today. I'm done. So you stop making. I just don't want to do
this anymore.
I just don't want to do it anymore, right? This is as benign as leaving an email in your inbox, right? So a foundation to procrastination because you see it and you're like, I don't want to touch that email because it's going to make me make a decision. Scrolling endlessly through Netflix, unable to decide what to pick, to as serious as a soldier freezing in combat, right? So it's a wide range of different presentations of it, but we've all probably felt that when we just don't want to make a decision anymore. So that's the first consequence.
Okay.
The second consequence of decision fatigue is what we call default decision making. This one's a bit more or harder to see, and it's when our brain, again, hits a point where, say, we've made too many decisions. So what your brain does is says, instead of doing all of that conscious effort and energy to do thoughtful, logical decision making, I'm actually just going to default to maybe what's worked in the past, use heuristics, or default to something that I perceive to be the safest decision. And it's an unconscious decision. Doing an example again, this could be anybody from like a doctor starting to prescribe more antibiotics as the day goes on because it's a safer decision just to hand out more antibiotics, right?
Sure.
These are loan application officers who are at a bank and they see an application beginning in the morning and they can discern whether or not to say yay or nay. But as their morning progresses, they actually start defaulting to rejecting more and more applications because that's the easiest thing to do.
Wow. Okay.
Those are the two consequences of it, and very different, as you can see, from just feeling tired.
It sounds like there is another element that is causing you to get to this point where those two consequences start showing up. What is that other element? Is it just the number of decisions you've made? Is it the difficulty of the decisions? Is it a process that you go through to make the decisions? What really causes you to reach that threshold?
Still an active area of research for sure. What the literature does show, and our own research as well, it is the number of decisions that definitely plays a role. And you said hundreds of decisions or thousands. The number of decisions actually estimated now is something like 35,000 decisions a day for your average person.
Oh, wow.
And by the way, like a generation ago, like my parents would be hundreds of decisions a day.
Really interesting.
So we're hitting a number of decisions that the human brain wasn't designed for, right? 98% of human history is on the African plain, right? The brain doesn't need to make 35,000 decisions at that point in time. So our brain wasn't designed for it.
Yeah.
So number of decisions.
Okay.
The second thing, what we've certainly seen in our own research and is in the literature as well, is the emotional engagement or magnitude of the decisions you're making. Right? So it could be a smaller number of decisions, but for a physician, those decisions could be life or death, right? For judges, a big study was done in this field looking at parole, and you're far more likely to get parole in the morning than the afternoon. Why? Judges have decision fatigue, and the default safe decision is to keep people in prison rather than putting them into the community. Yeah. But those are very intense emotional decisions with big repercussions. So decision fatigue can happen within an hour or two in that scenario. Or, regular office worker, regular day, maybe it hits you more in the afternoon just from the sheer number of decisions you're making. One other thing I'll highlight, because I know it's closely related to you in your own life too, is moms. I think we quite often overlook this because moms tend to take on the decision load of the house, right? They tend to make the most decisions for their children and whatever, right? Health, all those different things. And it's not just mental load, it's decision load. And every decision a mom makes for her children in particular is going to be highly emotionally engaging. So I bet you moms actually suffer from decision fatigue massively because it's a very emotional decision making. So it doesn't need to be a surgeon in an OR room, which it happens to. It's also us just in our daily personal life.
And I absolutely see that as a mother. And I think that's where the default kicks in for me for sure, where, I'm in the middle of something, there's a decision to be made that is completely different from what I'm working on right now. I will just rely on what decision I made in the past and felt like that worked. That's the decision you're getting now, kids. Go with that. Now, the situation may be completely different, and I'm actually not taking the time to sit and evaluate how is the situation different and what's the right decision for this situation. I don't have the time for it. I definitely don't have the bandwidth for it. And so, boom, default, right? And so that is definitely a form of fatigue. I have that now as a tool to use. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the default decision making isn't always a bad thing.
Sure.
Right? Because sometimes you're defaulting to, the safest or the easiest or what's worked in the past. It's just in certain situations, right, it can actually lead us astray. Or athletes, they can become more predictable as they rely more on comfortables, like a tennis player, right? They default to a safer or a swing they know better. Yeah. So it's in certain situations that we need to be aware of that default could definitely send us astray.
Does it matter the type of decision that you're making? Does that really matter? So for example, you are in an office environment, or you're a judge or a surgeon and you're taking big decisions or maybe smaller decisions at that moment of time, but you're constantly having to switch between different types of decisions. Is that also sort of a catalyst for the fatigue to kick in?
I don't think we know the answer to that one yet. Certainly the cognitive strain of multitasking is higher. Like we do know that versus, colloquially you can think of like flow state. When people enter the flow state, when they're super focused on a single task, and we've all been there, and then you have to switch out of it. It takes a lot of cognitive effort to jump out. Speaking to moms again, right? Like multitasking geniuses, right?
Yes, and I think that's what makes me most tired.
Yeah.
Just having to constantly switch from different types of things, like different types of decisions. It could be work, it could be home, it could be kids, it could be this podcast. There's so many different ways I have to use my brain and do it all in that moment in time. And that is tiring. I would second guess myself and say, like, did I make the right decision for that situation or for that person?
Yeah, I think multitasking definitely would drain you more. Evidence not out there yet, but I think from just the folks that we've talked to and researched with, I think that'll definitely be a component of it, because it's a lot of effort to switch gears.
Let's go a little bit, let's get a bit nerdy
and
get more scientific, which I know is definitely your comfort zone. What does a decision look like in the brain? What's really happening? Are the neurons doing something different? Like, are they then just like, let's say, memory recall? Are there different parts of the brain that are lighting up? Where does it physiologically sit in the brain, and what's happening neurologically?
Decision fatigue in psychology we've known about for a while. We used to call it ego depletion. Now, ego depletion has had a rough ride in the literature. Psychologists have known about a condition like this for a while. What got me interested in it is the physiological underpinnings. So not psychology, but saying, okay, what's happening in the neurons in our networks to actually cause this condition? And the leading theory for that right now is still a theory. We're obviously not allowed to crack open a brain and look too deep into it, but it does play out in certain models, and we've seen it happen, is accumulation of glutamate in the synapse.
For the people who don't know what that is, can you help us?
Yeah, we'll break it apart.
Break it down.
Okay, so what it is communication within the brain. You have two neurons, right? Two brain cells, and they need to speak to one another. Now, within a cell, there's an electrical signal. We call it an action potential that travels down, and it goes to this connection between the two cells. We call it a synapse, right? And this electrical signal releases a chemical that crosses that tiny, tiny space to the other neuron, and then the electrical signal continues on, right? So an electrical signal to a chemical signal, then to an electrical signal. That synapse, that chemical that's released, is a neurotransmitter. Yeah. So everybody's heard of these before: serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine. There's probably hundreds more we don't even know about yet. We're still kind of discovering them, to be honest. But what's really important in that synapse is when that neurotransmitter is released to send the signal, once the signal has been sent, that neurotransmitter needs to leave the synapse. So a new signal can come in, right?
Sure.
If it stays there, it's like noise in the synapse. It's still sending a signal, but it's not clear the message that's being sent. So there's very powerful mechanisms within our brain that clear that synapse such that a new signal can come through. So the leading theory for decision fatigue is this accumulation of glutamate, which is a neurotransmitter, in this synapse, meaning there's too many decisions happening, so you just physically don't have enough time to clear away the glutamate, so you see this noise in the synapse. And when that happens, what does your brain do? Well, eventually the signal-to-noise ratio is so bad that your brain says, I'm not getting a message through this network. I'm going to either not use it, not make a decision maybe, or I'm going to default to previously used network that can handle this throughput of information, right? So that the mechanism that we're exploring ourselves is this accumulation. Why glutamate? Well, really what we're looking at is within the prefrontal cortex, where your executive functions are, the CEO of your brain, if you want to think of it that way. Yeah. That's a particular part that we're keen on looking at, because disruption in synapses there would lead to behavioral consequences like decision fatigue, whereas disruptions in synapses in other parts of the brain are far more severe, right? Like you can have a lot worse conditions than decision fatigue. Yeah. So that's a neurological basis for decision fatigue, is this buildup of neurotransmitter within our synapses.
And is there usually a sweeper of the glutamate to get rid of it, which is perhaps not functioning in this case?
With neurotransmitters in general, there can be enzymes within the synapse that destroy or degrade the neurotransmitter, so break it into small parts, and then it's recycled back into more neurotransmitter. Or there's these support cells beside the synapse, and they have little proteins that are like vacuum cleaners that'll suck up the glutamate very rapidly from the synapse. So for glutamate, GLT1 is the name of the protein that works very quickly to pull the glutamate away. The interesting thing about GLT1, which is a target for us for sure, is it's affected by so many different things. It's affected by inflammation, oxidative stress, two closely related components. General stress at large, so like your glucocorticoid levels in your body, your emotional regulation can affect it. A crazy study that just came out like 3 weeks ago, and this one blew my mind actually, is there's this parasite that's in, a little off topic, but it's not.
Yeah.
There's this parasite that 30% of Americans have, estimated, and it's in cat litter and undercooked food. What's remarkable about the study, though, is it showed that it directly impacts the activity of GLT1, which is the clearing out of glutamate within your synapse, among other things. So even this parasite that maybe 30% of Americans have could be affecting that clearance mechanism, making you more susceptible to decision fatigue.
Got it. And affecting it by helping clear out the glutamate or not?
Sorry, downregulate. So it's not working as well.
Not working.
The vacuum cleaner is not working as it should.
Not working as well.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So parasite to stress to emotions to this seems to be a linchpin of glutamate clearance is this particular protein.
Yeah. So really, really varied, and we'll get to what we could do to help with it a little later. But let's stick a little bit with the decision making and the decision fatigue science a little bit more. So one thing you said a little earlier was when it's an emotional decision that needs to be made, or something that activates the emotional part of your brain, and you're making a heavy, big consequences kind of decision, you tend to get tired faster, or you tend to maybe have more glutamate accumulated faster. Why is that? And how are emotions related to this?
I'd break it maybe into two parts. So the first part is the emotional strain. So you making emotional decisions. Why does that cause decision fatigue quicker? We don't know all the answers to it. We know there's great control from the prefrontal cortex to like your amygdala, so like your stress centers of your brain and whatnot. And there can be dramatic changes in how those two parts of your brain speak to one another. Mechanism of action, still unsure about it. We can see it behaviorally. We know that emotion can cause decision fatigue faster, but the neurophysiological mechanisms of it, still active area of research.
Right.
The second part, which we've seen even in our own work too, is not just your emotional state as you're making decisions, but your emotional state from the decisions you've made. And I'll give you an example. We did a clinical trial with professional esports athletes, so video gamers. Like these guys are dialed in super fast. Like, what a great job, I guess, playing video games. But what was remarkable is we were looking at decision fatigue in them, because it's a huge concern in their industry. They have a word for it. They call it tilting. Tilting. And it's interesting to me, why tilting? Because it's a throwback to the pinball days. If you remember the pinball machines, when your ball got stuck or something, you got angry and you smacked the machine, and it would say tilt, 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 and you lost, right?
Yes.
So they call decision fatigue tilting, because for them, they make a decision, and unlike a lot of us at the office or something like that, is the repercussions of their decisions are near instantaneous. They make a bad decision in a video game and something immediately bad happens, right? The first part, emotional state while you're making a decision. But for these gamers, actually, that emotional repercussions of their decision dramatically changed how fast they suffered from decision fatigue, because they got emotional about their decisions. And this is for them, tilting is when they get very emotional in their decision making and their quality declines. So yeah, I think emotion is two components. Your foundation emotion, and then also how close to those the consequences of the decisions you're making you are.
Right. Emotions involved in making the decision, and then emotions involved that come out of the decision.
Exactly that. Yeah. So
really
gambling is a big one, because they also use the word tilting, because they also directly see the consequences of this.
Yeah, that just makes so much sense. I relate to it so much, because there are some decisions that I know if they've gone south, the decision was easy to make in the beginning and I thought I was doing the right thing, but the consequence of it was not, and the decision made everything else after that more and more difficult. It just it feels like a pile of heaviness on your shoulders afterwards.
Yeah.
And then you're really not making any smart decisions.
No, and you get stuck in this like vortex of bad decision making. Even like top tier traders, like commodity traders or whatnot, they have a word for it too. They say revenge trading. So if they made a decision on the market and it didn't work out well for them, then they get emotional about it and they revenge trade to try to get it back or something. So it's like a poor decision on a poor decision on a poor decision. So yeah, we've all have been there, I'm sure, with something in our life.
What's so fascinating to me is just the number of professions that you've mentioned in the last, 20 minutes we've been talking, that decision making and especially decision fatigue, these are critical things in the work that they're doing. You know, whether it's the surgeon or the judge or the trader or the athlete, this study, this field of like professions that need quick decisions or see consequences of their decisions coming through really quickly. How old is this? How long have we been studying this?
Yeah, and this is why, for me, it's just so fascinating. Because in neuroscience, very rarely are there like greenfield opportunities, right? Like our company focuses on like age-related cognitive impairment originally, right? And we know things about dementia and Alzheimer's. It's been in the literature for a long time to try to understand it. Decision fatigue is something brand new. And this is why I get so excited, and it's my mission, just because it's a consequence of modern society. My parents never had to worry about decision fatigue. In certain situations, maybe, but generally speaking, they didn't. And from our own work and from the literature that's going out there now, and we're talking like 3 to 5 years maximum within the literature, which is just a baby step when it comes to science research, right? It's affecting everybody. There won't be one of your listeners to this podcast who hasn't suffered from decision fatigue. It's everywhere. It's pervasive, and it dramatically impacts our success at work, our success in our personal life.
Yeah.
From our own clinical work, we know that it affects interpersonal communication. You become less willing and you do it more poorly when you have decision fatigue, communicate with your teammates. So it's all facets of our life, and it's a product of modern society. When I started to think about this and research it, I looked at my own life, and I'm like, I get up in the morning and I'd go on Reddit and then I'd scroll. I probably made hundreds of decisions before I got out of bed, right?
Yeah.
Scroll, like, share, comment, all of those, right? Social media is just a sink of decisions, right? So no, it truly does affect all of us. And that's the exciting part. Scientifically, it's very exciting because it's such a new field.
You said something really, really interesting. Our parents and the generations before them probably just made hundreds of decisions in a day. We now make, what did you say, 35,000?
That's an estimate, yeah. Yeah, not
right?
mine, someone else's. Yeah.
Thousands fold more. I guess over time, I would imagine generation after generation. Two questions. One, will we get used to a threshold? Like we'll get used to a certain number, an average, like maybe, my kids and their kids might be okay with 50,000 decisions. That will be their normal. Or is there like a physical limit to the number of decisions we can make?
Because this is, I think, what people need to realize is there's a physical limit.
There is.
Yeah, we already know about this, though, for other parts of our body, right? You can only run so far until your muscles fail. There's a physical limitation for how well your leg muscle can work. Can we have good nutrition and healthy and exercise? Of course, there's all those things to improve it. But ultimately, there's a physical limit. Our brain is the same way. There's just a certain capacity of quality decisions that you can make before you start to make shortcuts. Your brain makes shortcuts. And that's what we need to be aware of. So will our kids be able to make more decisions than us successfully? Maybe, because we'll learn, again, nutrition and different habits and things to change. But ultimately, it's a physical limitation. It's not psychology, it's physiology. It's the biology of our brain that we're hitting a limit to.
And so I think that is such an important message to echo, right? Because we believe we evolve and we get better and we reach new normals, and that's all fine and dandy, but maybe there is actually a physical limitation.
Absolutely.
Is there a number? Like, could we say, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000 decisions? Quality, I'm asking, in case I hit something.
I don't think we'll ever have a number because it's so personal, right? You could make 100 decisions about a topic and I can make 100 decisions about a topic, and we could both have very different degrees of decision fatigue, right? 100 decisions for your kids, you're going to feel it far more. It's going to happen far quickly than me making 100 decisions about what to wear or what coffee to drink.
Sure. Social media. You brought it up. Where do we go with this? Like, because soon we'll get into the topic of so what do we do about this?
Yeah.
And I think social media is definitely a precursor to that.
Social media for me changed a lot when I had kids, to be honest, because I didn't really care. I don't use social media very much, if at all. And I didn't really care about social media until I have two young kids now, and I'm like, now I have to start thinking about social media. Overall, what is social media for the human brain? Probably not good. A study came out 2 weeks ago, I think, early June, talking about, it was like 4,800 adolescents they looked at, and depending on how addicted they were to social media, because pretty much most adolescents are if they're on it, or suicidal tendencies went way higher. It's not good for us, especially for children.
Yeah.
But if we take the psychology aside,
Yeah.
and we stick to the topic of decision fatigue,
Yes.
I have a big worry about social media for it there. Why? Because decision fatigue, as I alluded to, is impacting our synapses, right? So how well our synapses are communicating with one another. When you're a kid and when you grow up, there's this process called synaptic pruning that you go through, basically. So you have tons of neurons, and all those neurons have loads of connections as a kid. And then as you grow into adulthood, your brain actually prunes away a lot of connections. Everything that you're not using, it'll get rid of, because those connections are very expensive, energetically speaking, for a cell. Those connections, though, whether or not it stays or goes, depends on how strong the connection is, right? So if you language, right, you're forming new connections around language, and you use it every day, so those connections are going to be extremely strong. Now, add decision fatigue into the mix, because with social media, I can pretty confidently say that a lot of these kids will have decision fatigue. If they're on it for 3, 4, 5 hours a day, making swipes, clicks, likes, comments, especially for kids with their social network, these are emotionally heavy decisions. They're not flippantly going through, they're doing this as part of their social network in many circumstances, not all the time. So there's a big emotional engagement. They will have decision fatigue. And the question that I don't have an answer to yet, but I'm concerned about, I would say as a neuroscientist, is how is chronic decision fatigue affecting the development of their brain?
Sure.
Is it a contributing factor to these things like isolation, loneliness, depression that all these children have today? Is this one of the consequences of social media and chronic decision fatigue being all these conditions?
Right. Yeah.
I'm worried about kids for a totally different aspect of social media related to decision fatigue. On a lot of other notes, we know it's not good for you. But for me, that's a concern.
It's not just the swipes and the likes and the shares and the the posts, etc. But it's also the content that you're absorbing, which is then also making you take so many decisions in your head. Like, am I as good as this person? Could I be better? Could I be going to this destination for a holiday? There's so many ways in which it mentally activates you. And hopefully it's good and it's educative, but we know social media not necessarily is. So it definitely causes a certain amount of like fatigue in general, like a mental fatigue in general, but then also some decision fatigue. I can absolutely see that coming through.
Certainly.
Okay, what do we do about it? How can we actually help ourselves not reach that point of fatigue?
It's a really important question, and it's something we're actively exploring. So maybe I'll break it kind of into two parts. One that like you can change your behavior for, and then I've personally done this, made a difference. And then maybe more long term, like what can we do to try to build resilience?
Yeah.
From a behavior perspective, the first and I think the most important thing is for people just to understand what decision fatigue is, just awareness of the topic. Because there will be some of your listeners today who, once we went through description of decision fatigue, they're like, I know that now, right? Like I've experienced that in the office. So just to know that that's decision fatigue and not mental fatigue. So just awareness, I think, is a very important concept so people can tell the difference. Because right now you just reach for another cup of coffee, right? As most of us used to do. From a behavior perspective, we need to remember one important fact, and that's that we have a limited number of quality decisions every day. It's a commodity that's limited. It's not infinite, right? Now, how would you structure your day knowing that? So for me, I make sure now that the most important decisions are made very early in the morning. Because I know that I'm going to have decision fatigue by the end of the day, and I'm going to make decisions that I'm not personally happy with. So this is my professional life, so big decisions for the company, and my personal life. And I'll give you an example for my personal life. So I would find that long day at work, I come home to the kids, and I'd be exhausted mentally and decision fatigue, and they want to play, and I would just default to what we used to always do. I'd play blocks, or maybe I'd put the TV on or the iPad on, right? Like that's the easiest decision to make. Versus in the morning, if I say, you know what, I'm going to make the decision, I'm going to do X, Y, Z with the boys tonight. So I don't need to make that decision later. I already know what I'm going to do with them. But then I've spent that decision capacity, and I know that it's going to happen. So I think just making sure that we prioritize our decisions. We need a decision list, not a to-do list. And that's a big, big change for people because we tend to do things that are the most urgent, which I get it. Sometimes you have to do, but we're not thinking about it from the quality of our decisions.
Oh, I love that. We need a decision list, not a to-do list.
Yeah.
That resonates so deeply with me. What if, though, I don't know what decisions I need to make? So what you're saying to me, what you're saying is you keep some time in the day, early on in the morning, to make the decisions, right? And you don't know maybe what decisions are coming your way, but the decisions you make early on in the day. Did you develop that as a habit, like a conscious choice that you've made to not just go into the usual rut of everything that you need to do in a day, but actually say, pause. Shawn, I'm going to take a couple of minutes out to think about what are the most important decisions that I will need to make in the next 24 hours, and I'm going to make them now, and I'm not going to wait till the end of the day. How did you make that behavior shift happen?
Most of my career, I use the Eisenhower matrix, so like urgency and priority. That matrix it helps you with a to-do list. So it shows you what's maybe low priority but high impact, or high priority. It's people can look it up and Google it. I'm sure you know it as well. Whatever facet people already use to strategically plan out their day, then I just overlaid the decision cost for that. So that's what I did. Personally, I said, this is my day today. Maybe it's just your calendar, right? And then you say, what's going to cost, or what decisions are going to be the most impactful for my life, personally or professionally. But remember, it's not just decisions, it's also activities. Creativity declines with decision fatigue. So if you have a creative session with your team late in the afternoon, that's a terrible time, because everybody's not going to make a hard decision. They're just going to default to what's worked in the past, right? So it's not just individual decisions, it's even activities. So I try to make sure I prioritize it. And generally, yeah, my life has changed dramatically from this, because now my afternoons tend to be mundane tasks. I do accounting, I do like HR stuff. Like, I mean, not that those aren't mundane, but certainly for parts of my day, that's all the stuff I do at the end is that. The morning is just the team stuff, the creative stuff, the big decision stuff, anything that's going to have that I want to make sure my decision is the best one that I can make. So yeah, whatever framework people use, and professionals tend to have a lot of different ones. Or like I said, it's just your calendar. Just start to think about decisions.
That is definitely a think shift moment for me, because that's not how I operate. I am a to-do list person. I do tend to prioritize my to-do list, but I'm still operating within like what needs to be done, not what needs to be decided.
Right.
So this is a really great tip. Thank you for sharing.
No, and it changes everything, honestly, because think of all that, and you've been in big businesses before. Think of all the seminars you've been to about like productivity, and how executives, and we've given talks to top executives at global banks before about this topic, because we want people to make more decisions. Productivity tends to be measured by the number of decisions that your people are making, right? Not the quality. Take the loan application officers, right? There's an argument to be made. That was a clinical study that was done. That as a manager, it may be better to send your employees home, because in the case of loan applications officer, the longer they stayed, the more revenue the bank lost. So it's really a fundamental shift, because our traditional measures of productivity don't account for decision fatigue. Because you're paid for, big business, you're paid for your decisions.
Yes.
Right? That's what I would pay you for, not necessarily the number. I want you to make the best decisions for the company.
Yes.
So it is a shift in thinking, because
it's a paradigm shift completely, right?
it is.
Yeah.
And maybe just to add on to it quickly, because what people ask us back, they'll be like, oh, don't worry, Shawn, because we have AI now. We don't need to worry about decision because we're offloading so much into AI. Not the case, because AI, again, is just compressing everything down, right? And so maybe it took you 6 hours before to do your own research or whatever it is to come to a decision point, right? It was a long time to happen. Now AI can give you that or do that research for you in 6 seconds, and you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
Right? Now you're on to the next task. So it's actually making things worse, because it's just compressing everything down, and it's making decisions more rapid. We don't have those breaks anymore. It's just decision after decision.
Yeah, and it's also kind of robbing you of that process, which I think has its own merits, but that's another topic for another day. But that's a really good point, actually. Yeah, I think it does help with some amount of productivity, AI, but it also then gets you to like switch between things and continue to do more of one thing a lot more, which would then result to hitting that threshold, whatever that magic number is for you, of going into decision fatigue.
For things we can do about it.
Yes.
So definitely awareness, recognizing it. Decision list, not to-do list.
Yes.
So try to plan out your day. A third one is breaks. So in the clinical work that's been done, it definitely shows that taking a break can help to restore some of your capacities. So go for a walk. Just go out, go for lunch, do something different from whatever task you're currently in. A break is extremely important for this.
Right,
and
disconnect.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's interesting to me is we've talked to some like top tier professionals, some of the best people in the world in their professions, from traders and athletes and whatnot, and they've naturally developed this. So a top trader, for example, that we spoke to, is he naturally goes out or in midday, whenever he feels like he's maybe starting to lose an edge, he goes for a walk. Not something I expected, right? I thought like Wolf of Wall Street stuff, but no, like this guy just goes for a walk.
Yeah.
Because he knows that he'll recover some of his decision capacities and he can enter it back in.
So let's go a little deeper into that, because breaks are so important I've seen this with whether it's my work, it's workout, it's kids studying, whatever it might be, right? What is the secret sauce of what is the best type of break you should be taking? Is it a physical activity like walking, which is what you're saying? Is it like sit down, close your eyes, meditate, listen to music? What allows you to recover the quickest and the most deep in a way to be able to go back to your usual decision-making fast train.
Yeah, I think it's very personal, but broadly speaking, remember taking a break from decisions. So it's not going on social media, right?
Yeah.
It's not making more decisions.
Yeah.
It's actually disconnecting from decisions entirely. What can you do? Mindfulness has become a big thing for me. And honestly, 7 years ago, I'm like, that's spiritual.
Yes.
Right? It's not neuroscience. We've done some major projects now that like, no, it's neuroscience.
Yes.
The data and studies that are done on mindfulness are remarkable. And it's so much so that I went from a complete turnaround. So no, for me, actually, I try to do like micro sessions as a break because sometimes it's inconvenient to go for a walk.
So like 5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes and just do like the body scanning or breathing, whatever part of mindfulness works for you. But I find it really helps to recenter things. And also the purpose of mindfulness too is, from a scientific perspective, not spiritual, is to try to distance yourself from emotions, right? If you're a regular practicer of it, and brain scans have showed this as well, like functional MRI, that you're not as impacted as emotions because you can actually see yourself, you see the emotion, you acknowledge it, but you don't let it influence your logical decision making as much.
Right.
I remember the connection between emotions and decision fatigue.
Yeah.
So we're slowing down or we're reducing the impact of emotions when we practice mindfulness.
Right.
Yeah. So for me, that's the break. If I can't get out for a walk or can't do something different, mindfulness.
So in general, like kind of taking the most important thing about a break is that it truly should be a break.
Yeah.
Should be a disconnect from taking any kinds of more decisions.
Yeah.
Right. And then if it's a physical activity or a pause and stop and slow down activity, that could work really well too. I definitely see that when I see clients as well. And sometimes the sessions tend to be quite heavy. Sometimes they tend to be difficult sessions for the client. And you kind of, as a human being, take some of that with you. But after every single session, I do that. I take a 5-minute pause to just sit down, close my eyes, digest, and release. And it helps me bounce back and move into the next session.
Yeah.
Are there certain lifestyle factors that enable us to be better decision makers or less frequent decision fatigue makers?
Sure. So yeah, what we covered was kind of like changes you can do in your day-to-day. So behavioral adaptations, I would say. From a lifestyle perspective, it's a little different. So this is managing decisions, your behavior. So you try to strategically plan out your decisions, try to cut out unnecessary decisions, things like that. The other side is it's trying to build physiological resilience to decisions. And this is still very much an active area of work. So that's the first thing I should say. We by no means know the answer to this, but people are hungry for this. Top tier athletes, when the physicality between the athletes is very close now. It's all in their brain, right? And decision fatigue is a big part of it. So what can you do? The biggest thing is mindfulness, and we basically already spoke about that. I would say that has arguably one of the most robust scientific evidence for building resilience to emotional disruptions, which we know directly ties to decision fatigue. Sleep is critical. So decision fatigue is, maybe I should mention this at the beginning, it's temporary. So when you have a good night of sleep, all your decision fatigue is gone, right? You wake up completely refreshed. That assumes you have a good night of sleep, though. So one of the remarkable discoveries of neuroscience over the past 10 years was the glymphatic system. So this is this dishwasher system of our brain. So when we go to sleep, we always knew this had to happen. We never knew how it was happening. But this discovery showed that actually basically sleep causes the space between your brain cells to expand a little bit, and the fluid just basically washes through your brain and cleans everything out, including excess glutamate or neurotransmitter or any bad toxins that may have been built up over time. But that type of sleep is very deep sleep. So not REM sleep, it's deep sleep, right? So sleep is critically important for brain health at large, as you know very well. Yeah. But for decision fatigue specifically, you need sleep to recover from it.
Any specifics there about either amount of sleep, type of sleep that's important?
Research done to date is just your average, what you hear everywhere. So that 6 to 8 hours of sleep, I would say. Yeah. That would be the general consensus for it. Yeah. I will add one thing that's interesting for sleep, though, is napping. Because actually those esports athletes that I talked about earlier, the top tier ones, so some of the best in the world that we spoke to or their coaches we spoke to, some of them have trained themselves to have naps during tournaments. So their tournament may be 10, 12 hours long, right? Yeah. They will actually go in a busy, loud stadium into a corner and be able to have a 20-minute sleep. Because we do know that can restore a lot of your decision capacities. Practically for you and me, we have naps every day. I wish we could.
Yeah.
but probably not.
Yeah.
But napping is another big thing that certainly can happen.
But I do agree with that, because when I do have the luxury of being able to take one, and I can't take one for more than 10 to 15 minutes, but it is completely and totally refreshing. Not always the case for a lot of people. For some people, taking a nap in the middle of the day can be worse. They feel worse getting up from it.
Yeah.
But I guess I have that gene from my dad where a quick nap can actually
Feel great.
reactivate me.
I'm the same way.
Yeah,
my wife is not. Yeah. Yeah, she gets grumpy.
Awesome. I mean, look, so the seed sounds like sleep, obviously. We've covered that. What about,
Mindfulness.
Mindfulness. Nutrition? Anything there?
Yeah, nutrition's an interesting one. And it's certainly something we're working on. I know a lot of other companies are working on it, because now that we know the condition exists, we have a physiological target for it. The question is, what can we do about it, right? So you'll see we're coming out with a product this year. A lot of other companies will be probably coming out with products as well in the next few years. So will nutrition be able to curb the effects of decision fatigue? Probably. I fully expect that some of these products will be able to do it.
Okay.
Always look for clinical trials. We clinically tested our product. You have to always do your usual.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a magic bullet? No.
Yeah.
Will it slow down decision fatigue? Probably. There will definitely be products that can do it, but ultimately it's kind of a losing battle, I would say.
Right.
So nutrition will be out there. Specific targeted nutrition, specifically for decision fatigue, I should say. General nutrition at large, if your brain is healthier from good nutrition, is going to be performing better.
Right.
So if you're eating foods that cause inflammation or all those other things for general health, it will impact decision fatigue as well.
So you mentioned these products that could help us with it. Could you give us a general description of what these products could be? What are they like?
I mean, our product, I'll say that it's been 4 years now. So like what we, through a nutritional perspective, we target GLT-1 to try to upregulate the activity, to try to make it work harder and faster for longer periods of time.
Got it.
And from our clinical studies, yes, we can stave off the effects of decision fatigue for giving people better quality decisions for longer periods of time.
Right. So this is a supplement.
Yeah. I mean, we're working on a drug as well, but that's a whole different ballgame for sure.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
There will be pharmaceuticals out there as well. But this isn't, realistically speaking, the pharmaceutical path is probably not something that most people want to go down.
Yeah.
But in certain instances, a soldier, it could be a viable option.
So much we've learned. Everything from the physiology to the different types of decisions and how emotions impact them. And then we talked about lifestyle factors. Super interesting. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. You have your own podcast called Decisions That Count. And I think this is obviously a topic that's very familiar and close to you, even from a work perspective. Have you seen a big shift that's happened to you in your own life that's come out of something you've learned in this podcast?
Probably a few things I would say. First, science-wise, it's been such a fantastic experience, because not in neuroscience you rarely get to, at least my type of neuroscience, like the cell molecular stuff, they get to actually talk to people with the problem.
Sure.
Right? Usually you're in the lab and it's very non-personal, I would say.
Yeah.
For me, it's just the everybody knows what I'm talking about. Right? I talk about decision fatigue, and then boom, it just connects from all these different professions like you mentioned. It's just been remarkable for me and been invigorating, because we're trying to find a solution to this. So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing, is just the excitement over this issue, in the sense that it's widespread. People recognize it, they want a solution for it. And the mission of our podcast is to build awareness, just to make people aware of this topic, which is, as we spoke to, kind of the first consideration.
Right.
But then also talking to all these people, it's kind of a mirror, I would say, to being like, because you talk about decision fatigue in their life and their career, and then you kind of start thinking, well, what about my own life?
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had dramatic changes in how I approach things. For me, it's probably professional, of course, but personal has been a big thing. So, I mean, another example is like date night with my wife, right? Like you're like, oh, date night Friday. And then Friday rolls around and it's date night, and you're like, what should we do? Oh, it's just like watch Netflix, right? Like you just don't want to decide. It's just so much, stay in bed, right? It's so much effort. Yeah. But you have to plan ahead for that. Yeah. And for me, it's actually, I started to think about purpose and happiness, and where am I spending my best decisions? And that's when the realization for me was like, I'm spending them way more at work than I am at my family, right? And I think that was a big realization for me over the past number of years with the research, but also just talking to people about it.
Thank you so much for sharing that and for sharing all the knowledge and for having the mission that you do, which is such a unique mission, which is also why I called you an anomaly, because you're one of the few people I know that has gone so deep into this topic, and not just from a professional and even a personal point of view, which is what I've learned today, but you're also developing products to be able to help people with this, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing what you do. And of course, thank you for being here. Are you ready to move into a rapid fire with me?
Let's do
yes?
it. Go for it. Yeah.
So I have 5 quick questions for you.
Okay.
You're going to give me quick answers to them and maybe a quick why if it relates to that.
Okay.
Ready?
Go.
Okay. If you
I don't have decision fatigue.
I don't have this. It's just 5 questions. So we'll add them to your 35,000 decisions. If you could spend a day inside anyone else's mind, who would it be and why?
2 answers. Quick. My wife, just to know what's going on. Maybe we need to cut that.
Edit.
Carl Sagan, physicist.
Cool. Why?
If I wasn't a neuroscientist, I would definitely do that. Stars. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite brain hack or ritual?
The mindfulness now. Yeah. The short ones. I'm
The
never big
5-minute
into
ones.
yoga or into like meditation or big groups. Just by myself, 5 minute
A daily non-negotiable for brain health.
sleep. And as a parent. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yes. A myth about the brain that you'd love to see busted.
The one I get asked the most, that we only use 10% of our brain.
A book, a tool, or a person that's completely shifted your thinking.
I'd say the decision list as a tool, overlaid on top of my other productivity things like the matrix and things like the Eisenhower matrix.
Yeah.
But the decision list, I would say.
I'm so going to use that. I cannot wait. And if somebody asked me the question that I asked you before, of like podcasts, what have you learned? What's changed? I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that. I love that.
Well, for me, it's the thing that I adopted the quickest. Usually it takes me a while to like change the direction for like adopting new habits and things.
Yeah.
But that was something that it happened really quick for me.
Yeah, it just feels like it would be really effective.
It does, and it feels good when you do it.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you, Shawn. You are amazing. The work that you're doing is amazing. And you have been an absolutely amazing guest. Thank you for being here. And
Thanks
thank
for
you for
having me.
everything. Thanks for tuning in to Think Shift, where we uncover the science and stories that help us explore the incredible power of the human brain and mind. I hope this episode sparks something new for you. A fresh idea, a shift in perspective perhaps, or even a small step towards a healthier mind. If it did, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and even share it with someone who might need this conversation too. Your support helps us bring more powerful insights to curious minds like yours around the world. Next up, we've got more experts, bold ideas, and surprising discoveries coming along your way. So stay tuned. And until then, remember, big shifts start small. Stay curious and keep shifting.